This is the Italian Real Estate Podcast, here to help you with the ins and outs and basics of Italian real estate, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com.
Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Italian Real Estate Podcast, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Of course, we are back with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. And of course, I'm Rafael Di Furia. And in this episode, we wanted to have a quick Q&A with Marco talking about retiring in Italy. And so Marco, just to jump straight into this episode with the first question, the question would be, can you transition from an elective residency visa to Italian citizenship? Is an elective residency visa a pathway to citizenship in the country?
The answer is yes. Once you obtain an elective residency visa, also known as retirement visa, you can apply for Italian citizenship through residency, meaning that after 10 years of residency, you can file your application to obtain Italian citizenship through residency. Now, it needs to be 10 years of full-time residency, meaning that you need to have spent the majority of your time in Italy during those 10 years without any gaps. So if you relocated back to your own country for a period of time and you removed yourself from the residency registry, then the count would start over. So it's important that you have maintained your residency from a legal standpoint for 10 years without interruptions. Also, if you have Italian ancestry and for whatever reason you don't qualify for citizenship through ancestry and you have an Italian-born ancestor that needs to be either your parent or grandparent, you can apply for citizenship through residency after only 3 years of full-time residency in Italy. Now, the application for citizenship by residency requires that you pass a language test. So you will need to take the test to be able to obtain citizenship through residency. Also, let's not forget that after 5 years of full-time residency in Italy, you also qualify for permanent residency, meaning that you no longer have to renew your visa, your retirement visa every year, but rather you will be able to apply for permanent residency that will allow you to stay in Italy indefinitely without having to worry about frequent renewals.
Thank you, Marco, for getting into that topic. And going on to the next question, for those who may be interested in the elective residency visa, this quote-unquote retirement visa in Italy, do they get health coverage in the country? Can they get onto the public system, or do they have to have private healthcare insurance? Is it free? Is it paid? How does this work for somebody in this particular set of circumstances?
First of all, in order to apply for the retirement visa, you need to get a private insurance. It is one of the documents required when you submit your application. So among your paperwork, there will need to be a proof of purchase of your private insurance that needs to cover your stay for the first year. But after that, you can also sign up for the Italian healthcare system. It won't be completely free like it is for Italian citizens residing in Italy. And you will have to pay an annual fee, which will be, anyway, insignificant, in my opinion, compared to what you can expect to pay for healthcare in the US. So in short, you can register with the Italian healthcare system if you have an elective residency visa, but you need to pay an annual fee.
Very interesting. And also, continuing on our line of questions here, is it possible for somebody who is getting the Italian elective residency visa to be able to include any family members on this application? For example, a spouse or children, or say, for example, they've adopted a child, or for example, they are the legal guardian maybe of a grandchild or a niece or a nephew who is still currently a minor. What are the options available to people in these situations?
Unlike other visas in other countries where basically the main applicant can extend their visa to their spouses very easily, in this specific case, everyone needs to apply individually. Now, while there are different appointments and different applications, of course, the consulate, which is where you apply for the retirement visa, will know that you are a family. But the point is, your visa will not automatically extend to your spouse, and your spouse also needs to prove that they have the ability to support themselves and that they meet the financial requirement, which is roughly 31,000 euros per year in passive income. So also your spouse needs to meet the financial requirement, or your spouse needs to be able to prove that your passive income will allow you to cover both your own stay and your spouse's stay. So in other words, your spouse can use your financial situation to prove that they qualify for the elective residency visa, but formally the applications are separate. Now, minor children or adoptive children or whoever is a minor, and for example, if you are their legal guardian, they will be included in your application, meaning that you will be applying for yourself and for themselves. They don't need to file a separate application. However, you need to be able to show that your financial situation also allows you to support your children and any minors during their stay in Italy. And a lot of consulates have required that you need to have 31,000 euros of worth of passive income for yourself and 31,000 euros per minor. So if you consider that if you have two children and a spouse, you need to be able to show that you have 31,000 euros times 4 in passive income that allows you to support yourself and your entire family in order to be granted the Italian elective residency visa.
Well, that's quite interesting, especially that particular detail there about the amount that you would have to have coming in through passive income, but maybe going in a bit of a different direction. And for those who are thinking about purchasing property when they would be living in Italy on an Italian elective residency visa, would it be possible to get a mortgage as somebody living in Italy on an Italian elective residency?
Let me start by saying that you do need to have a property in Italy that is available to you in order to obtain the retirement visa, which means that you either need to purchase a property or rent one, and you need to have a property available to you before you submit the application for the elective residency visa. In fact, that's one of the requirements to be proved. With that being said, a lot of my clients, they start by renting a property because they want to obtain an elective residency visa without committing to purchasing one. They also want to decide where they want to purchase once they are in Italy. But I also have a portion of clients that just go ahead and purchase a property before they apply for the elective residency visa. Now, in terms of obtaining a mortgage, while it's possible to obtain a mortgage for non-residents, it's more difficult. Also, you will likely end up receiving a smaller percentage of the money that you need to purchase the property if you obtain a mortgage for non-residents. It is a little bit easier to obtain a mortgage as a resident. So as somebody who already has the elective residency visa, banks will be more inclined to give you a loan, a mortgage, if you can show that you have already established residency in Italy. Also, the percentage of money that you get in terms of the sum of money that you need to purchase one specific property is a little bit higher if you obtain a mortgage for residents. Of course, the bank in Italy will need to see you, to meet with you in person, no matter what. So regardless of whether you are a resident or non-resident, and they will want to see all of your financial documents to prove that you have the ability to give them back the money that they loan you to purchase a property.
Well, thank you, Marco. Very interesting again to hear about this particular aspect of what could be someone's reality and looking into to figure out what their life could look like in Italy on an Italian elective residency permit. But one thing I'm curious about, what would be, at least in regards to the application part of the process, like during the submission and actually waiting for the answer, what would be some of the potential reasons why somebody might have their application rejected? I mean, I'm assuming based on what you said about having to have a place that you can live and not having that might be one of the reasons why. But what are some other reasons why someone may have their application rejected?
Of course, failure to meet any of the requirements can be a reason for rejection. So if you fail to show that you have a property available to you, or if you fail to purchase plane tickets, because that's one of the requirements, or if you didn't get the insurance. But I'd say that the most common reason for rejection is failure to meet the financial requirement. Now, make no mistake, generally, when you fail to show that you have the appropriate financial that you meet the appropriate financial requirement, it doesn't lead to an automatic rejection. Generally speaking, the consulate asks you for additional documents or allows for an integration. But it is very important to prepare the documents. But generally speaking, the consulate will have questions or remarks regarding your specific financial situation. So especially if you are slightly above the threshold, they will want to be sure that that money that you claim that you have is actually real money. For example, if you have a pension that is wired to you every month and the pension exceeds the threshold, I would expect little to no questions. But if your passive income comes from other sources like investment or rental properties, they will want to see for how long you hold your investment, if it's certain that it will generate that kind of passive income. The same applies to rental properties. They will want to see your tax returns, maybe. So they will want to be certain that your income is stable over time, and it's certain that you will be having an income, passive income, that is above the threshold for the foreseeable future. So they might have a lot of questions about that. Of course, if you go to the appointment completely unprepared and you show that your passive income or your overall income is very low, way below the threshold, you will get an automatic rejection. But if you are more in a gray area where you have documented quite well your passive income, you're slightly above the threshold or slightly below the threshold, then you'll just probably get a request for an integration or to provide additional documents to clarify your financial situation.
Well, again, Marco, very interesting to hear about this. But I'm sure one question that people will be thinking about as time goes on and comparing their different options is like, what's even the point of having the elective residency visa? Do I need to purchase property? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? But really what it comes down to is, if somebody is wanting to purchase property, what would be the difference in their experience as a permit holder versus as just, say, a tourist in the country, just somebody getting a tourist visa to enter into Italy?
Ultimately, it will depend on your specific situation, but there are definitely very many advantages of being a residency permit holder versus a tourist. Now, again, I said it depends on your specific situation. So if you are not interested in making Italy your home and you just want to go on vacation, probably not having the elective residency permit is the best choice. But if you're somebody who is undecided, maybe you want to stay for half a year, so you don't know which one is the best option. Now, let me clarify that even if you don't want to stay full time, but for the majority of the time or more than half a year, having an elective residency permit definitely has advantages. For example, when it comes to purchasing property, if you are a resident of Italy, so if you have a permit, then you can get tax discounts. More precisely, the tax rate is only the 2% versus the 9% when you purchase a property. Also, when it comes to annual taxes, you don't owe anything if you're buying your first home in Italy and you are a resident. Also, being a resident allows you to register with the healthcare system, which you can't do if you are a non-resident. And also, being a resident and having a tax code allows you to access many other services that are offered by the government, including, for example, getting an Italian ID or purchasing a car. So definitely establishing residence in Italy, which you can only do if you have a residency permit, has some advantages for people who want to stay, I'd say, for at least half a year. If you want to stay for less than half a year, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to get a permit, but you will definitely have to take into account that you can't do a lot of things that residents can do. So it's best to have your own private health insurance, for example, because you can't be covered by the Italian healthcare system. Now, off topic, let me say that it's particularly advantageous to have dual citizenship. Of course, I'm only referring to those who can qualify for citizenship by descent, because as a dual citizen, you can have a lot more freedom and you can decide to establish residence in Italy, even for a short periods of time. And therefore, if you want to buy property in Italy and you also qualify for citizenship by descent, that has a lot of advantages if you can qualify and get citizenship by descent. Otherwise, like I said, applying for an elective residency visa or not applying for an elective residency visa is a personal choice, but definitely having a permit, a residency permit, has many advantages related to being able to access these services that I just mentioned.
Again, thank you, Marco. I think that's going to be very helpful for people. But another factor that I think will be very interesting to some is that what if they don't meet a particular requirement for the process? For example, if they don't meet the financial requirement, are there ever any exceptions made, or do they look at other factors that are just beyond how much your passive income is?
That is a very interesting question. And regarding exceptions being made for people who don't meet the financial requirement, that is something that I was saying more often in the past. At this moment in time, I haven't seen any exceptions made for people who had an income that was below the threshold. So they are more strict when it comes to evaluating the financial requirements. And it's very important that your passive income is above the threshold established by the law. And if it's below, it's very likely that you won't get approved. Even, for example, if you have a lot of savings, a lot of money in the bank, it's unlikely, but there's always a chance, especially if your savings are considerable, but it's up to the discretion of the clerk at the consulate.
And Marco, just for the last question of this episode, kind of along those lines of thinking and thinking about what options a person might have available to them, what would be the alternatives to being able to get elective residency in Italy?
Like I said before, if you don't qualify for the elective residency visa, one of the easiest way to being able to reside in Italy and more easily purchase property in Italy is to apply for citizenship by descent, if you, of course, qualify for citizenship by descent. But also, I would advise to also look into whether you qualify for other citizenships, of course, European citizenships through descent, for example, Irish citizenship or Polish citizenship. As we all know, getting another European citizenship allows you to also reside in Italy without limits, and that also applies to your immediate family. And if you don't qualify for another citizenship in Europe, you can look into whether your spouse, for example, if you're married, qualifies for a citizenship by descent in another European country. If your spouse, for example, gets Irish citizenship or Polish citizenship or citizenship of the Czech Republic, you can then get a residency permit, including in Italy, if your spouse and yourself establish residency in Italy. Of course, there are also other visas that the Italian government offers in case neither you nor your spouse qualifies for any European citizenship, like digital nomad visa or the investor visa.
Well, Marco, thank you so much for sharing all of this information with us in this episode and for helping to shed light on this very interesting topic about retiring in Italy. And of course, if anybody is needing help with the process to be able to retire to Italy, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, italianrealestatelawyers.com.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're interested in more information like this and about purchasing property in Italy, renting property in Italy, and also some of the other factors that can come along with it, be sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel as well as the audio only podcast. But of course, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, that means you are also automatically subscribed to now not only the Italian Real Estate Podcast, but also the Citizenship Podcast, as well as our new project, Ask the Italian Lawyer. But of course, if you're interested in more about life abroad and living abroad from the perspective of a dual citizen expat, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can search for Not Your Average Globetrotter on YouTube or your favorite podcasting player of choice. But of course, again, we have been here with Italian attorney Marco Permunian from ItalianRealEstatelawyers.com. I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we'll see you all next time. Later.
Thank you.